So Troy Miller, National Religious Broadcasters, what can you tell us about the organization?
Well, look, this is our 79th year of operation. NRB started back in 1944 when some pastors were really visionary, said, hey, this new medium of radio, great way to communicate the gospel, great way to do Bible teaching. Started to go on radio, and a group said, nah, we want to decide what pastors are on or not. They went to Moody Church in Chicago, talked about it, and formed the National Religious Broadcasters Association. And for 79 years, we've been advocating on the behalf of Christian communicators to be in the public square. And they're the ones that should decide whether or not they want to use any of these new broadcast mediums or today the new digital mediums in order to do the same thing.
And you're always adapting and changing and bringing those new things in. I mean, I've been coming to the conference every year, right, the convention, and it's amazing to see those changes and how you adapt to that. Now, we're at the convention right now, and there are thousands of people here coming together from across Christian communication space. What is it like to sort of be in that with all of those incredible people?
Oh, it's wonderful. You know, it really is, because a couple of things. First of all, you get to meet people, friends that you've had for years are here, and you get to catch up. You get to find out what's going on in their ministries. You get to hear about the new innovative things that they're doing. And so that aspect, it's wonderful. Plus, it's wonderful to see people doing the same thing, getting together. But one of the things I really, really like is when you walk down the halls here, you see a group, and they've got their arms around each other, and they're praying for one another. We need more of that iron sharpens iron, more people encouraging. So it's just great.
Well, and these are the communicators. I mean, in the Christian world, across the world, this is not just in the U.S., the most, prominent, well-known, also small ministry, every ministry coming together and being in one place. That's actually an incredibly powerful thing that I think a lot of people maybe they don't know that it goes on, right? But one of the other things that goes on is that interesting people like Governor Ron DeSantis show up, who is now a presidential candidate. And what was it like to have him here on the opening night?
Well, it was incredible. First of all, we invited him over a year ago. We have a tradition inviting the governor of the state that we're going to be hosting in. And so he accepted. So it was wonderful to have him here. You know, he was his speech to NRB, I think, was spot on. He talked about the things that he had accomplished in Florida, and he talked about things that were important to the religious community and the Christian community. And it's nice to have a governor who is open to talk about his faith.
Right. Yeah, it's a nice change that we don't often see. And you said something interesting there. You invite the governor in the state where it's held. And in this case, he hadn't actually announced his run at that point yet.
No, he is not.
So will there be in future NRBs, will you invite, because there'll be another one before the next election, will you invite other candidates?
Candidates? No, I don't know. Candidates, gets into some issues when you're a 501c3. We did have a presidential forum a few years back, but we're in February next year. The presidential cycle will be in full force, and they'll mostly be out campaigning.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now, I want to talk about something attached to that, right? Because here you have all the communicators gathering. The big question is, how important will evangelicals be in the next presidential election? What do you think?
Well, I think they're very important because, as close as the elections have been over the last several cycles, they could swing the vote one way or the other. Here, I think it was over 25 million, maybe 30 million Christians voted in the last election. And I think Christians are even, since that election, are even more keyed up to the issues that are important to them. We've had the Dobbs case that's gone since then. We've had all of the COVID stuff that happened. And so Christians are really concerned about what's going on today in the culture. So I think we're going to see a heavy Christian turnout.
Absolutely. I think you are right about that. And it could actually sway things, especially in the primaries, right? That's going to be a lot of Republican candidates are going to be vying for that audience. All right. So a couple of interesting things. The NRB board approved a resolution affirming a biblical view on gender. Talk a little bit about that. Why was that decision made?
Well, look, that's a big topic today in the world today. And it's also a big topic that's getting many Christian communicators canceled on social media platforms. So if you stand up for the biblical view of a male and a female, or the biblical view of marriage between a man and a woman, you're most likely going to get censored on the social media today. And so on behalf of a lot of our members who are out in this space, NRB took a stand on this. Lots of our resolutions don't come out of just what we as the organization believe, but as we as the entire association believe. And so this was an important issue for us.
It's affecting people. It's affecting the members. It's affecting the community. Another one was the weaponization of the federal government. That was another. And I think that's interesting for a lot of reasons and what's happening around the country right now. Why did you guys choose to tackle that?
Well, look, exactly. We have protection under the First Amendment. Our founding fathers were wise when they put the Constitution together and the Bill of Rights. And one of those was the free exercise of religion, freedom of the press, and the freedom of speech. Three things that NRB is very involved with. There are a lot of Christian press, Christian media, Christian communicators and pastors. And so to take an issue on the government now who has decided to get involved in kind of a third party way. So we've seen the weapons, but listen to this. A year ago, sitting Congress wrote a letter to Google, to Alphabet, and said, hey, after the Dobbs case, you need to change your search engine, right? You need to not, when people are looking for pregnancy help, you need to not come up with these Christian pregnancy centers. You need to be able to send them to places for providing abortions. Alphabet did that. The government's forbidden to do that. They can't come and use a third party to circumvent the First Amendment. And that's what we're talking about, just one example of the weaponization of government. We're worried about where the IRS is going. Are we going back to the lowest learner days? Is the IRS with all these new agents? Who are they going to look at? Are they going to start looking at Christians with their 501c tax exempt? So that's a big issue.
Yeah, no, there's a lot here. And, it's almost implicit in what you just said, but I do want to ask, we talked about NRB at the start here, the association, 79 years. I mean, you talk about this history, but right now, where we are right now, culturally, politically, socially, why is it so important for an organization like NRB to be in existence and to be active?
Well, right now, because look, two things. One, in a dark world, you need light, and people are looking for hope, and NRB members are the members providing that hope. I tell people often, NRB doesn't get around because it wants to be some powerful political entity here. We have ministries out there that are feeding people. They're providing clothing. They're providing educational resources. They're providing counseling, and they're often doing all of that free of charge. They're doing after school programs. Most of our ministries, if not all of them that I talk to, they just want to be left alone to do what God's called them to do. They want to answer to their own conscience and what they believe in their faith. They don't want the government to continue to intrude. And we see an aggressive government, and not just a government today, Billy. We've been fighting that for 79 years, but now we have corporate America that's getting involved in all of this in their role. And of course, the mainstream media, and I don't just mean the press media, the entertainment media and all that, Hollywood, they are constantly working against the values and the important things that we believe. And so that's why NRB is out there. We are out there fighting so that our ministries can stay in that public sector doing what God's called them to do.
One last question for you, and it's about this lawsuit against the Attorney General in California, the Babylon Bee suing the Attorney General there. NRB has joined in on that lawsuit, requiring social media companies to report certain bits of content to report it to the government. Talk a little bit about that case.
Yeah, here's a great example again, California, and we often know the way California goes, a lot of states will follow this. So California passed this new law that says social media companies, and they define that as anybody you can go on there and you can create a page, an individual page, and then you can communicate with other members. Well, a lot of our folks do things like that, but one of our biggest members, Salem, in their web products has some issues like that, some products like that. And what the California says, if you cover any of these controversial issues, they have like 5 of them, you have to report all that to us. Well, that's, again, the government getting in and saying, we're going to be the gatekeepers of free speech. And they're going to say to you, well, you're covering this as controversial. Why aren't you talking about that? Why aren't you blocking this and not blocking that? That's not the government's role. California doesn't get to come in and circumvent the First Amendment of the Constitution and say, we're going to be the gatekeepers of free speech. So that's why NRB is involved, again, on behalf of many of our members that are going to have to implement this, but all of our members that are going to be affected by it.
Well, Troy, I appreciate you taking the time today. Where can people go to find out more about NRB?
Go to nrb.org. You can find out about all the issues that we're fighting for and tracking. You can also find out about the next conference, which is in February in Nashville, Tennessee. And if you think you're going to get about getting in Christian communications, you really need to be here. This is a place you can learn about how to do that. But also, if you're just concerned about the issues that are involved in this country today, we've had a number of panels. You led one here at NRB talking about those issues with the experts in these areas, and they're going to tell you what's going on and give you advice of how to address it.
Well, Troy, appreciate your time today.
Thank you.